Welcome to the Complete Story Series, where we take trade paperbacks and single issues and we break them down into digestible bites for you to understand. And then we read it dramatically back to you. All alterations to the panels, text, and images are to prevent copyright problems, and all art is owned by the respected companies. Welcome to our continued story of the Geoff Johns Green Lantern run. This story takes place right after the War of the Green Lanterns and carries the Green Lantern stories into the New 52. A few things here are reflected in the New Guardians video that we did, and I'll direct you properly when we get there. Now, if you feel lost, make sure you start with our earlier videos on the Green Lanterns. In brightest day and blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power. Green Lantern's light! Sinestro is currently standing in the halls of the Guardians of the Universe, all chained up and reciting the oath. They look down on him and ask him how he feels having said those words after so long. And he just looks up at them and asks, "What do you want with me, Guardians? I did what you asked, now let me go!" But Ganthet steps forward and he says, "Don't you see this for what it truly is? A chance at redemption." And Sinestro says, "What do you expect of me? I will not listen to your orders again." But Ganthet smiles, and he tells Sinestro, "We expect you to guard your sector." So, Sinestro looks at him and the other Guardians questioningly, and he leaves for his sector. Ganthet feels happy about this decision. That is, until he turns to his fellow Guardians. "Ganthet, you have spent far too much time with the humans," his fellow Guardians tell him. "You're letting emotion cloud your judgment. We all need to be of one mind, so we shall aid you in this, Ganthet." And with that, they forcibly remove any capability of emotion from Ganthet. He screams out into the galaxy, as a piece of him dies that day. Only one person heard this cry for help though, Sade, whom is currently the Guardian of the Orange Lantern Corps. But to see what happens with that, go check out our New Guardians story arc. We journey to a galaxy away, to a man who needs to get his life back together. Hal Jordan was stripped of his Green Lantern ring at the end of the War of the Green Lanterns, and he now finds himself trying to go back to normal. But he has 3 months of past bills, and he's been removed from the Air Force for being MIA, and any chance of getting Carol back was thrown out the window the moment he asked her to co-sign his car, instead of actually going out with her. His life is a wreck, but that kind of happens when you vanish off-world to go save the Green Lantern Corps from destruction. But, almost as if in answer to his prayers, Sinestro arrives at his door and tells him, "If you want this ring back, you'll do everything that I ask of you." After Hal vents a little frustration, Sinestro creates a second ring from his current ring, and he puts it on Hal Jordan's hand. "What is this, your third or your fourth chance, Hal? How many times have you thrown this opportunity away?" Sinestro asks him. He goes on to explain that this ring he created draws from the same power battery as his own, and that he controls Hal Jordan right now. Hal Jordan is nothing more than his dog. But he does need his help. And just then, a yellow lantern appears and declares, "Whomever kills Sinestro will take his place!" But this yellow lantern is nothing more than a simpleton, so both Sinestro and Hal dispatch of him quickly. Then Sinestro explains his reason for being here and wanting Hal Jordan's help. He wants to destroy the Yellow Corps. They enslaved his homeworld of Korugar. But Hal asks, why would he help Sinestro? "Because this ring is all you have, Hal. The Guardians aren't going to give you another one," Sinestro answers him. So Hal punches Sinestro across the jaw, and he says, "I'll come help you, but don't think for a second you're better than me." And Sinestro just looks at him, and he begins to laugh. "Jordan, I am better than you, and you already know that. Now come on, no more fooling around." And the two men head off for Korugar. Meanwhile, the Guardians begin to formulate their new plan, with the emotionless Ganthet. The Guardians explain that the Green Lanterns are all drive and will, and they do not seem to have any foresight in their actions. The Manhunters were too by the book and couldn't decide for themselves what was right or wrong. So they all agree. It is time to create the Third Army. While the Guardians devise their plan, Sinestro explains his plan for Korugar. They're gonna wait until dark, and then Sinestro will jump out and begin battling the Yellow Corps. Hal will fly to the central yellow battery and he'll place the green battery inside. It's a failsafe that will deactivate the entire Corps. And Hal asks him, "Wait, you made the failsafe to your Yellow Corps being the use of a Green Lantern power battery? It's almost as if you planned for all of this to happen eventually." And Sinestro tells him, "I never wanted this to happen. Now dim your light, go from green to black." And Hal just looks puzzled. "To black? Your training really stopped once I left, didn't it, Jordan?" So they get into position and they hide and they wait. And they watch the Yellow Corps torture and torment the inhabitants of Korugar. And they wait. Hal wants to jump in and save people, he really does. But Sinestro tells him to wait for a tactile advantage. They need to move at night. Until he sees one Korugarian, one named Arsona. He leaps into battle and begins battling the Yellow Corps way ahead of schedule. The Korugarians flee in terror, and Sinestro begins to draw the entire Yellow Corps on top of himself. Hal sees this as his opportunity, and he flies to the Yellow Power Battery. He gets right inside of it, and the Yellow Power Battery declares, "Green Lantern detected, disintegration process started," and it begins to melt Hal until nothing remains. As he's dying, he yells out to Sinestro, "You set me up!" And Sinestro just looks over and he questioningly asks, "Jordan?" Just then, the battery declares, "You are not Thal Sinestro. We will not teleport you to the antimatter universe," and it ejects Jordan from the Yellow Power Battery. "How could you fail this, Jordan?" Sinestro yells as the entire Yellow Corps jumps on top of him, taking him out of the fight. Both Hal and Sinestro get themselves captured. Hal is thrown into a depowering cell where he uses everything he has to try and get out, but it does nothing. And when he gets to the last 0% of his ring, he creates a construct of Carol Ferris, just so he can apologize to her before the ring fades out. Sinestro finds himself thrown into the cells with the rest of the Korugarians. The Yellow Corps wants their leader back, and they assume that the Green Ring has an influence over him. Inside the cell, Sinestro sees his people reel in fear from him, and he sees Arsona. She was the only officer who backed him when he tried to rule Korugar. She explains that the people of Korugar don't want his help. All of the pain and suffering that they've been through is all his fault. He's delusional if he thinks he's helping. But he just dismisses it. "I didn't plan this, they aren't going by my orders." "The horror that is our home is your fault," she screams at him, and he stops, and he tells her he's sorry. But she just replies with, "Your empty regret doesn't change anything. Korugar is beyond saving." Hal Jordan is right in the other side of the wall, and he can hear them. "Sinestro, give them the power to fight back. If you can make multiple rings, do it, and give the people of Korugar a fighting chance against the Yellow Lanterns. Create hundreds of rings!" Sinestro doesn't think he can do it, but he decides to give it a shot, and he creates hundreds of rings, and he gives them to each of the prisoners. Immediately, they all turn on Sinestro. But after a little coaxing by Hal, they realize that they're going to need the little power that these rings have to remove the Yellow Corps from their planet. So, Sinestro enacts Plan B, and he calls his Green Lantern power battery back to himself, breaking down the door to the cell that they're all in. Hal powers up alongside everyone with Sinestro's battery, and the two men fly towards the central Yellow Power Battery while the Korugarians fight against the Yellow Corps. And just as the Green Lantern rings he made are vanishing, they make it inside, and they begin to siphon the power of the yellow rings off, shutting down each of the rings one at a time. All of the members of the Yellow Corps fall into a coma. Sinestro then lands, and the children cheer for him. But Arsona walks over and says the children may be too young to remember, but we don't. Go, Sinestro. You are not welcome here. Hal and Sinestro head back to Oa, and after a little banter, Sinestro charges Hal's ring with enough juice to go home, and he commands it to take him there. Hal yells out, "We had a deal! I help you, I get this ring!" And Sinestro tells him, "I said I'd give you a ring, but not a power battery to charge it." Hal gets handed off back to Earth with an empty Green Lantern ring, and he looks at it, and he just says, "I need to get this to work again. This is all I have. It's all I..." And he pauses before he can say it. "Want." So, he goes back to Carol to ask her for one more chance to be with her, and after a little lighthearted joking, she agrees. Maybe he can have more than an empty ring after all. Meanwhile, back on Oa, the Guardians all meet around their universe map, where they discuss the matters at hand. And it is as we suspected, my fellow Guardians. Sinestro has rid Korugar of his core. Then, like Hal Jordan, they are out of the way. It is time to proceed to the Chamber of Shadows and free the First Lantern. The First Lantern will lead the Third Army. We are the Guardians. We will not be stopped. And with that, we will be moving on to the Rise of the Third Army. That'll be coming out next Friday. If you learned something new in this video, please give it a like, and if you want to chat about any video, join us at Twitter at Comicstorian. Now, don't forget, we have 2 other channels that we're really focused on. Our gaming variety channel, known as Eligible Monster, and our list about everything channel, List Bomb. We just launched it, and we could really use your guys' support by going on over to the List Bomb, which will be in the description down below, and subscribing and checking out our videos. Basically, all the research that we do for everything, I find a lot of weird things, like the 8 creepiest deep-sea creatures, the 8 biggest hamburgers in the world, and the 8 craziest deaths in comic books. Go check all those videos out, we would really appreciate it, and I'll see you guys next time right here at Comicstorian.